Abeokuta residents living in flood-prone areas have been greeted with anxiety and palpable tension. This is because flash floods had once dealt a huge blow on them in the past, destroying properties and sometimes loss of lives. In June, the state government had directed residents of flood-prone and wetland areas across the 24 communities to relocate temporarily as part of moves to avert flood disaster. Parabiu Adebowale, an 80-year-old Panebita, looks frail and dejected as I approached him, where he sat in front of his bungalow at the flood-ravaged Ijeon-Tutun area of Abeokuta South local government area of Ogun State. He admitted that the government had asked them to vacate the areas.
The erosion used to enter our house, but since they brought the caterpillar, it has stopped. If it was before, it used to enter our house.
Barely 2 months after the relocation order, Galaxy TV News made a stop at some of the flood-prone areas. However, it was discovered that while a handful of the residents have abandoned their houses for safer reasons,
we usually run away. When it stops, to return back home, since government did not provide an alternative.
And baby no, at the same time, tobacco milale,
we don't live here. We only come in the morning. We leave in the evening to sleep. Government should help us. They didn't do anything for us here.
The Ogun River Basin Development Authority hinted on plans to release a large volume of water from the Onyo dams to cities in both Lagos and Ogun State, raising concern among residents of the state. The managing director, Olufemi Odumosu, justifying the decision, said water releases from dams are yearly tradition to safeguard dams from collapsing.
We are likely to increase the water releases to an average of about 7 to 9 million cubic meters per day, while at the same time preparing for the main flood. I mentioned that the peak of the flood season is always in October. So in October, we intend maximizing the created space in the reservoir. I mentioned that we'll reduce it in August to impound more water and release it at a controlled average rate of 13 to 15 billion cubic meters per day, or less as to allow other major and uncontrolled tributaries to River Ogun to discharge into the sea, So, downstream, there are still other tributaries that enter Ogun River. So we have to take into consideration that those inflows into downstream, there are still other tributaries that enter Ogun River. So we have to take into consideration that those inflows into the will still compound or cause some downstream flow. So we have to regulate how we release, especially in that same October, so as not to create a kind of flood peak downstream, to inhabitants or to stakeholders or to residents downstream.
For residents of Ijayi, Ijeon-Tutun, Isale-Oja, Kuto, Amolasho, Ijeja, Adedotun, Agoka, Enugada, Totoro, Onikoko, all in Abeokuta, obviously can't wait to sleep comfortably with their 2 eyes closed. From Abeokuta, the Ogun State capital, John Felix reporting for Galaxy Television News.